The hospital corridor reeked of that familiar antiseptic smell mixed with suppressed suffering, each footstep echoing like a muffled lament on the faded linoleum. It was a typical winter Tuesday, the kind where persistent rain beats against the windows and makes everything seem grayer, heavier. On a bench near the oncology ward, a small, frail figure waited her turn with the patience of someone intimately familiar with the slow pace of hospital bureaucracy. Celia was 72, but her face bore the marks of a life that seemed to have lasted much longer. Her thin fingers, stained by chemotherapy, trembled slightly as she held a yellowed envelope, her latest test results, carefully organized in a clear plastic folder that showed signs of excessive use. The headscarf, discreetly tied, couldn't completely hide the absence of the hair that had once been her pride. Still, there was a quiet dignity in her bearing, an elegance that circumstances hadn't entirely stolen. Beside her, the bench was occupied by others equally weary from the wait and the fight against illnesses they hadn't chosen. Celia discreetly observed the movement. Hurried nurses, doctors in impeccable white coats conversing in hallways, family members carrying wilted flowers and renewed hopes with each consultation. It was a world apart, where time followed different rules and each minute seemed to carry the weight of an eternity. When her name was finally called, she rose carefully, clutching her worn handbag and documents as if they were precious treasures. The receptionist, a young woman no older than 20, barely glanced up from her computer screen. "Documents," she said mechanically, extending her hand without even looking at the patient who had approached the counter. Celia handed everything over neatly: hospital card, ID, medical requests, previous test results. Each piece of paper represented a consultation, a treatment, a stage overcome in the battle she had been waging for months. The receptionist flipped through them quickly, stamped a few documents, and with a dismissive gesture pointed down the hall. "Room 12. You can go ahead. The doctor will see you shortly." Others witnessed the scene. A middle-aged man waiting for his wife looked down, embarrassed. A woman accompanying her teenage grandson pursed her lips in silent disapproval. A group of medical students chatting animatedly about their shifts fell silent for a moment, but soon resumed their conversation as if nothing had happened. Everyone saw, everyone heard, but no one said anything. Celia found the indicated room and sat in the chair opposite the doctor's desk. Her hands trembled slightly. She didn't know whether it was from the effects of the treatment or the humiliation that still echoed in her ears. She tried to compose herself, smoothed her headscarf, and reorganized her papers, a ritual that helped her maintain her composure. That's how she always did it. She transformed pain into strength, vulnerability into silent dignity. Dr. Robert, an experienced oncologist who had been treating Celia for 4 months, entered a few minutes later. He had the look of someone who had seen many battles fought within these walls, tired but still compassionate eyes, steady hands that knew how to both heal and comfort. Upon seeing her, he immediately noticed that something was different. There was a new sadness in her eyes, a break in the resilience she had always shown. When the consultation ended, Dr. Robert walked her to the door. "See you next week, right? And remember, anything at all, don't hesitate to contact me." Celia nodded and began walking back down the corridor, passing again by the reception where the young employee remained immersed in her computer, oblivious to the impact of her cruel words. Just then, a commanding figure entered the hospital lobby. A tall man with graying hair, he wore an impeccably clean white coat that contrasted sharply with his calm and respectful demeanor. This was Dr. Fernando Alvarez, the hospital's chief of staff, a respected figure not only for his medical expertise, but also for his humane approach to his staff and patients. He moved slowly, observing his surroundings, a habit developed over decades of caring for people at their most vulnerable. His eyes fell on Celia, who was walking with her head down toward the exit. Something in her posture caught his attention, a recent defeat, a pain that went beyond her illness. With over 30 years of hospital experience, Dr. Alvarez had learned to recognize when a patient was suffering not just physically, but also from the insensitivity of the healthcare system. He approached discreetly, walking alongside her for a few yards. "Excuse me, ma'am, I'm Dr. Alvarez, the chief of staff here. Would you mind if we spoke for a moment?" Celia was surprised. It was rare for a doctor of his stature to address patients directly in the hallways. She nodded shyly. "I saw you leaving Dr. Roberts' office. How was your appointment?" Celia hesitated. She didn't want to cause trouble, didn't want to be seen as a complaining patient. "It was fine, doctor. Dr. Robert is very attentive." But Dr. Alvarez sensed there was more to that diplomatic response. His experience told him this woman was carrying a recent grievance. "Ma'am, I'd like to ask you something, and I hope you'll be honest with me. During your visit today, did anyone treat you inappropriately? Did anyone say anything that made you uncomfortable?" Dr. Alvarez's direct question took Celia aback. For a moment, she considered denying it, continuing to bear the humiliation alone. But something in the doctor's gentle voice, the respectful way he looked her in the eyes, lowered her defenses. "Doctor, I know you're all very busy, and I understand that sometimes people say things without thinking." She paused, took a deep breath, and then continued, her voice choked with emotion. "But when someone tells you you won't last much longer, that they wonder why you even bother to keep living, that hurts more than any needle or any medicine." Dr. Alvarez felt a pang in his chest. In 30 decades of medicine, he had witnessed many forms of suffering, but unnecessary cruelty always affected him deeply. "Can you tell me exactly what happened and where?" he asked, his voice carrying a gentle authority that inspired confidence. Celia recounted the incident at the reception desk, the receptionist's words, the feeling of humiliation she still carried. Dr. Alvarez listened silently, without interrupting, letting her vent the pain she had kept to herself. When she finished, he gently placed his hand on her shoulder, a simple gesture, but one that conveyed all the respect and compassion she hadn't received at the reception desk. "Ma'am, I want you to know something. Your life is immeasurably valuable." Your courage in facing this illness, your dignity in the face of suffering, your kindness even when hurt, all of this makes you an example of strength that should inspire us all, and I guarantee this will never happen again." His words came from the heart, unhurried, carrying a conviction that deeply touched Celia. Tears welled up in her eyes, not tears of sadness this time, but of relief. Someone had seen her humanity, validated her pain, recognized her dignity. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much," was all she could say, but her voice carried a gratitude that went far beyond words. Dr. Alvarez accompanied her to the reception desk. The young receptionist, absorbed in her tasks, didn't immediately notice the chief of staff's presence. He approached the counter and waited patiently until she looked up. When she finally recognized him, her posture changed instantly. Her back straightened, her expression became formal. "Good afternoon. I'd like to speak with you for a few minutes. Would that be possible?" The receptionist nodded nervously and stood up, following Dr. Alvarez to a more secluded corner of the lobby. Celia remained nearby, not out of curiosity, but because the doctor had asked her to. He wanted her to witness this moment. "I understand you made some comments about one of our patients today, comments about her life expectancy and the value of her treatment." The receptionist paled. She tried to deny it, but Dr. Alvarez gently raised his hand. "No need to explain now. I just want you to understand something very important." He turned slightly so that both the receptionist and Celia could see him clearly. "This woman," he said, pointing respectfully to Celia, "is a warrior. She wakes up every day knowing she'll face a battle, but she gets up anyway. She comes here not because it's easy, but because she's brave. She treats everyone with courtesy and respect, even when she doesn't receive the same in return." The receptionist looked down, clearly ashamed. Other people in the lobby began to stop and listen discreetly, nurses, doctors, other patients. There was something about Dr. Alvarez's voice that commanded attention, a moral authority that came not only from his position but from his humanity. We have the privilege of working in a place where people come seeking healing, hope, a chance to continue living. Our job is not to judge who deserves that chance or for how long. Our job is to provide the best possible care with respect and compassion to every person who walks through these doors. His voice was firm but not aggressive. It was the voice of someone teaching, not punishing. Every patient we treat is someone with a story, with people who love them, with dreams yet to be realized. When we disrespect a patient, we're not just being cruel to them, we're betraying everything medicine stands for. Dr. Alvarez paused, letting his words sink in, not just with the receptionist, but with everyone listening. Then he did something unexpected. He turned to Celia and, in front of everyone present, said loudly and clearly, "Ma'am, I would like to apologize on behalf of our entire institution. The way you were treated today is unacceptable, and I assure you we will take all necessary measures to prevent this from happening again. Your presence here honors us, and we hope to reciprocate with the respect and care you deserve." A profound silence filled the lobby. The receptionist was clearly moved, her eyes welling up. Celia, in turn, felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from her. It wasn't just the apology, it was the public acknowledgement of her dignity, the restoration of her humanity in front of everyone there. "Doctor," Celia said, her voice firmer than it had been all day, "I accept your apology, and I want to thank you not only for your words, but for reminding me that there are still people who see beyond the illness, who see the person behind the patient." Dr. Alvarez smiled, a genuine smile filled with mutual respect. "You don't need to thank me. We should be thanking you for giving us the opportunity to care for someone so courageous." He turned to the team that had gathered around. "This is the kind of strength we should admire and support. This is why we do what we do." The receptionist timidly approached Celia. "Ma'am, I apologize. My words were cruel and unnecessary. I have no excuse for what I said." Her voice was sincere, filled with genuine remorse. Celia looked at her for a moment, seeing not the insensitive receptionist from moments before, but a young woman who had made a mistake and was now willing to learn from it. "It's all right, my dear. We all say things we shouldn't sometimes. The important thing is to learn and move on." Celia's generosity and forgiveness touched not only the receptionist, but everyone present. There was a lesson there about how true strength manifests itself through compassion, not revenge. Meanwhile, you who are joining us in this story may be reflecting on how many times we have witnessed similar situations in our lives. Moments when insensitivity hurts, but also opportunities to restore human dignity through simple yet powerful gestures. If this narrative is touching your heart, consider subscribing to our channel and activating notifications, as we believe that stories like this can inspire real changes in our daily attitudes. Sharing reflections on humanity and empathy is one of the most beautiful ways to honor people like Celia, who face their battles with such dignity. Dr. Alvarez walked Celia to the hospital exit. Along the way, they talked about treatment, about hope, about the importance of maintaining dignity even in the most difficult moments. "Doctor," he said, purposefully using the respectful title, "I would like to invite you to be our humanization consultant. I believe your perspective could greatly help our team better understand what it means to truly care for people." Celia was surprised by the invitation. "Doctor, I don't even know if." He gently interrupted her. "You know more about courage and dignity than many of us who have studied medicine for years. Your experience, your way of facing difficulties, your ability to forgive, all of this is medicine too, and it would be an honor to learn from you." In the days that followed, the story of what happened at the hospital spread quietly, not through social media or newspapers, but the way the best lessons spread, from person to person, from heart to heart. The receptionist, deeply impacted by the episode, became one of the most attentive employees at the hospital. She had learned that each person who came through those doors carried not just an illness, but a whole story of struggle and hope. Dr. Alvarez instituted monthly meetings where Celia shared her perspective with the medical team. These were not formal lectures, but intimate conversations where she talked about what it's like to be on the other side, about what really matters when one is vulnerable, about how small gestures can make the difference between despair and hope. Her hair began to grow back, but she continued to wear a headscarf occasionally, not out of necessity, but as a symbol that she had transformed her vulnerability into strength. The room where these meetings took place was informally named Celia's room by the staff, although she always humbly protested the honor. The walls were decorated with handwritten phrases from patients who had been there, messages of gratitude, hope, strength found in the darkest moments. Months later, when Celia was discharged, her battle against the disease had been won, the hospital organized a small ceremony. It wasn't anything grand, just the team gathered in the main lobby to celebrate not only her physical healing, but everything she had taught them about emotional and spiritual healing. Dr. Robert, her oncologist, gave a short speech. Celia taught us that medicine is not only about eliminating diseases from the body, but about preserving the humanity of the soul. She showed us that true healing happens when we manage to keep our dignity intact, our capacity to love preserved, our hope renewed every day. The patient care coordinator, recently promoted from receptionist, approached with a gift, a scrapbook filled with photos and testimonials from staff members whose lives had been touched by Celia's story. "Ma'am, this scrapbook is to remind you that you not only overcame your illness, you helped us overcome our insensitivity." Celia flipped through the scrapbook, tears welling in her eyes. Each page held a photograph and a personal account of how her story had positively impacted the care of other patients. Nurses recounted how they'd changed their communication styles. Doctors wrote about the renewed importance they placed on the human aspects of treatment. Administrative staff described how they'd learned to see each person not as a chart number, but as a whole human being. Dr. Alvarez spoke last. "Celia, when I met you in that hallway, I thought I was offering help. Today, I realize you were the one who helped us. You taught us that true authority doesn't come from titles or positions, but from the ability to recognize and defend human dignity. You showed us that strength isn't about never falling, but about gracefully rising with each fall." He paused, looking around at the assembled team. "But most importantly, you taught us that in every hospital hallway, in every waiting room, in every moment of human vulnerability, we have the opportunity to choose between being part of the problem or part of the cure. And that choice defines not only the kind of professionals we are, but the kind of people we choose to be." The ceremony ended with a moment of silence, not a heavy silence of mourning, but a reflective silence of gratitude. Each person present carried a lesson that transcended the hospital walls, that true medicine begins with the recognition of shared humanity, that true power manifests in the protection of the vulnerable, that true strength is revealed in the ability to transform pain into compassion. When Celia left the hospital for the last time as a patient, she carried more than the cure for her illness. She carried the certainty that her experience had planted seeds of change that would continue to flourish long after her departure. And she left behind an invisible but profound legacy, the constant reminder that every person who walks the halls of a hospital carries not only physical symptoms, but dreams, fears, hopes, and above all, an inherent dignity that must be respected and protected. In the months that followed, other hospitals in the region began implementing similar humanization programs, inspired by the story that had become legendary in local medical circles. It wasn't a story about medical miracles or impossible cures, but about something equally powerful: the human capacity to transform wounds into wisdom, humiliation into dignity, silence into a powerful voice for change. Celia's story became one of those narratives that people tell and retell, not because it's extraordinary in its events, but because it's profoundly true at its core. It speaks to moments we all recognize, situations where we've been hurt by the insensitivity of others, opportunities where we could have defended someone vulnerable, instances where small gestures of humanity restored our faith in human goodness. More than that, the story serves as a constant reminder that we don't need positions of great power to make a difference. The receptionist learned that her words had the power to hurt or heal. The silent observers discovered that witnessing injustice without acting is a form of complicity. Dr. Alvarez demonstrated that true leadership means using one's position to amplify the voices of those who are unheard. And Celia, she proved that sometimes the deepest heroism manifests not through grand gestures, but through dignity maintained amidst suffering, kindness preserved even when wounded, a capacity for forgiveness that transforms aggressors into allies. Her invisible medal, far more valuable than any formal decoration, was woven with threads of quiet courage, peaceful resistance, and a humanity that refused to be diminished by circumstance. And this medal, unlike those made of metal, multiplies with each person who hears her story and chooses to honor it through more compassionate actions in their own lives. Today, when someone walks the halls of that hospital, they may not immediately notice the changes, but they're there. In the warmer smile at reception, in the extra time doctors take to truly listen, in the gentler way nurses address patients, in the overall atmosphere of respect that permeates the environment. These changes are Celia's true legacy, living proof that an ordinary person facing extraordinarily difficult circumstances can plant seeds of transformation that blossom far beyond their own journey. And she left behind an invisible but profound legacy, the constant reminder that every person who walks the halls of a hospital carries not only physical symptoms, but dreams, fears, hopes, and above all, an inherent dignity that must be respected and protected. In the months that followed, other hospitals in the region began implementing similar humanization programs, inspired by the story that had become legendary in local medical circles. It wasn't a story about medical miracles or impossible cures, but about something equally powerful: the human capacity to transform wounds into wisdom, humiliation into dignity, silence into a powerful voice for change. Celia's story became one of those narratives that people tell and retell, not because it's extraordinary in its events, but because it's profoundly true at its core. It speaks to moments we all recognize, situations where we've been hurt by the insensitivity of others, opportunities where we could have defended someone vulnerable, instances where small gestures of humanity restored our faith in human goodness. More than that, the story serves as a constant reminder that we don't need positions of great power to make a difference. The receptionist learned that her words had the power to hurt or heal. The silent observers discovered that witnessing injustice without acting is a form of complicity. Dr. Alvarez demonstrated that true leadership means using one's position to amplify the voices of those who are unheard. And Celia, she proved that sometimes the deepest heroism manifests not through grand gestures, but through dignity maintained amidst suffering, kindness preserved even when wounded, a capacity for forgiveness that transforms aggressors into allies. Her invisible medal, far more valuable than any formal decoration, was woven with threads of quiet courage, peaceful resistance, and a humanity that refused to be diminished by circumstance. And this medal, unlike those made of metal, multiplies with each person who hears her story and chooses to honor it through more compassionate actions in their own lives. Today, when someone walks the halls of that hospital, they may not immediately notice the changes, but they're there, in the warmer smile at reception, in the extra time doctors take to truly listen, in the gentler way nurses address patients, in the overall atmosphere of respect that permeates the environment. These changes are Celia's true legacy, living proof that an ordinary person facing extraordinarily difficult circumstances can plant seeds of transformation that blossom far beyond their own journey, and that sometimes the difference between despair and hope lies not in grand heroic gestures, but in the simple choice to see and honor the humanity in every person we meet along the way. The story ends, but its message remains: that each of us carries the power to be Dr. Alvarez to someone, to transform moments of another's vulnerability into opportunities to demonstrate our own humanity, to choose to be part of the cure in a world that sometimes seems to be suffering from an epidemic of insensitivity. And perhaps that's the most powerful lesson of all, that we don't need to wait for outside heroes to restore dignity to the world. Sometimes it's enough to look around us, identify where humanity is being wounded, and make the simple yet profound decision to stand on the side of compassion.